Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. All right, guys, we've got two new gun bills introduced in Congress. Now, these two actually have teeth. I'm going to be honest with you, this is kind of what they've always wanted, specifically when it comes to AR pistols. But before I go any further, I want to lay something out really clearly, because I do not lead with fear on this channel. That is not the purpose of this video. It is not to be afraid or instill fear. The idea here is to basically spread knowledge so you guys are more prepared for the fight at hand. That's the first thing. The second thing, these aren't even going to make it out of House. They got to go all the way to the Senate after passing the House, and they have to go over the filibuster and then be debated and voted on after that. Nothing's changed. This is the exact same scenario that H.R. 8 and 1446 are just sitting there, just doing nothing because they're stalled. So, keep that in mind. No fear. These aren't going forward to be law, but it's very important because they've done something here, and I think they tipped their hand a little bit. And if you've watched this channel for a while, you know we look for the why behind their actions. We don't just look at what they do, and when they say look over here, we don't look over there. We say, what are you doing? There's something there, and they are screaming something in the background here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments field below. I'm going to walk through it as best I can because I think we're onto something. Everything's going to be in the description box below for your review, and I look forward to hearing what you guys think. But let's dive into this bad boy. So, House Democrats to introduce legislation aimed at closing gun loopholes. One provision would regulate ghost guns. Okay. That's the first thing, and that's why I jumped in this article, is something doesn't make sense. My antenna started going off. You know that feeling when something just feels weird? You can't put your finger on it, but something's off? That's what's going on here. Why would they put out and introduce new bills regarding gun legislation, specifically ghost guns, when the ATF just put out a provisionary rule regarding ghost guns and personal-made firearms, or PMFs? You understand what I'm saying? If the ATF comes out and makes this rule, and the rule becomes an existing rule and an interpretation of existing law, it's now a law. Why would you make another law that says the same thing that this law just created? You understand? It doesn't make sense, and it's duplicitous. There's no reason for that. That's a big tell. Okay? Let's keep going, and I'm going to just bear with me because I think we're onto something, but I'm going to tie this together as best I can. 8 House Democrats are set to introduce gun legislation on Wednesday in an effort to close existing loopholes and prevent mass shootings, according to a statement obtained by ABC News from the office of Rep. Val Demings of Florida, one of the bill's sponsors. Okay, great, fine, whatever. The legislation would close loopholes by regulating so-called ghost guns, as well as concealable assault rifles that fire armor-piercing ammunition. Okay, that's new. It would also codify the Trump administration's regulation of bump stocks. Now that is incredibly important, and it just keeps on piling up. Something doesn't feel right. The bump stocks were an existing rule by the ATF, exactly like the ghost gun rule that was just introduced. They are both rules. However, the ATF is going to come out with this ghost gun, and it's just going to be out there, and it's going to go in through the judicial system, and it's probably going to get struck down because it's very vague and weird. The bump stock ban was already struck down by the circuit court. Why would this legislation aim specifically at ghost guns and bump stocks when they're both rules? Could it potentially be that they know the bump stock failed and they're worried the ghost gun might fail? You see where I'm going with this? Why would they do it twice? It doesn't make sense. Now, they've also introduced something else which is timely and coincidental. They've introduced concealable AR pistols. They call them assault rifles that fire armor-piercing rounds. What they're referring to is an AR pistol. Now, this is where it gets very fascinating. If you guys recall, in early April, Biden came out and basically requested some executive actions, not orders, which were basically just like a laundry list of, could you please look into this? Had no weight past that. And he said, I want the Department of Justice to look at ghost guns in 30 days. Well, guess what? 30 days came along almost to the day, and they put out the new rule. He said AR pistols, or concealable ARs, I want a rule on that in 60 days. That's 60 days coming up in the first week to the first week and a half of June. Coincidentally, this legislation comes out, and it includes all 3 of the proposed rules that they've asked for. Bump stock bans ghost guns, and they preemptively did AR pistols, or concealable ARs. Coincidence? Nah. Because something we do on this channel, we don't look at what they want us to look at, we look at why they would do that. Because on its face right now, it doesn't make sense. I'm going to keep going, but that's where I'm kind of angling. Now, Representative Ted Deutsch, a Florida Democrat and co-sponsor of the bill, said the legislation will crack down on unregulated ghost guns and dangerous concealable assault rifles like the ones in recent shootings in Boulder, prohibit bump stocks by law, and boost the background checks, which is what H.R. 8 and 1446 were doing. So they're putting another law on the exact same thing. It doesn't, you guys follow me? It just doesn't track, okay? Now, these are actually the proposed bills or the resolutions at this point. 3299 to help reduce gun violence through background checks in the National Firearms Act and for other purposes. Okay, they're trying to incorporate things into the National Firearms Act, so they're looking to amend the NFA, which is where fully automatics come from, suppressors, short barrel rifles, things of that nature. That's what they're trying to get into. Basically, it would make it more expensive and cost prohibitive to own guns that we already own on the streets currently right now. Okay, that's what they're trying to angle at. Now, this next one, again, this is important. Nothing has changed in Congress. I'm not leading from fear. I'm just showing you guys what they're proposing, okay? H.R. 2466 to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to include armor-piercing concealable weapons within the definition of firearm under the NFA Act, or the NFA. Basically, they're trying to get assault-style, concealable, armor-piercing, super-duper tanks-in-your-hand guns into the NFA. Essentially, like I said, that will make it so you have to have a tax stamp to even have a pistol, similar to an SBR or a suppressor, okay? That's all that is. These aren't moving forward, and if they do, they're going to die in the Senate, but that's what they're requesting. Now, here's where all this stuff doesn't make sense unless they know something that we don't. Okay, I'm going to tie this all together in a big bow, and let me know in the comments below if I've made this clear, because this is kind of convoluted. So, they come out, the ATF comes out with a rule for bump stocks during the Trump administration. It goes through, it becomes effective, then it gets struck down in court. The new rules from the ATF under the Biden administration come out and say we're going to ban ghost guns and everything has to have a serial number and we're going to redefine what a firearm is. Okay, that's one rule you've proposed. I disagree with it vehemently, but whatever, that's your rule. Then you are expected to come out with another AR pistol or concealable AR rule in the next 2 weeks. This legislation drops, which includes all three things. That's fine and dandy, but the only problem here is if you already have rules coming from the ATF and the DOJ, it makes the laws that you're trying to pass in bills superfluous. It doesn't make sense unless you know that because the bump stock ban got struck down, the ghost guns is too vague and not worded correctly to where that's probably going to get struck down, and you probably know that there's an AR concealable pistol rule coming in the next 2 weeks, which will also get struck down because it's obvious that it violates the Second Amendment. You can't do this. So the only way around that is to make an existing legislation amended or create a new legislation. That's what I think this is. I think this is something that they know that it's not going to work what they're trying to do, so they're trying to push through things to say to their constituents, well, we tried, but those darn Republicans. That's where I think we're at, guys. I think this is a good sign, and as soon as I get more text and details on these two bills that they introduced to give you more details to what they're looking at, I will absolutely do that. But until tomorrow, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm Braden. See you later.